Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, what's old is new again as former President Trump is now President-elect Trump following his stunning victory over Kamala Harris. And Florida voters say no to expanding abortion rights and legalizing recreational marijuana. Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly, right-down-the-middle look at the top stories affecting the state with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions and issues that affect our lives. I am joined today, as I am every week, by my co-host, longtime clinical and Emmy Award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi. Dr. Welcome.
Great to be here, Frank.
Okay, well, the election results are in with voters deciding to give former President Trump another 4-year term. Hey, we predicted last week, in the contrary to this, we predicted Kamala Harris might win it. What went on? What do you think happened with the race-wise?
Frank, here's how I see it psychologically. I think there are a lot of people in this country who are not happy with the system, and that's what this election shows. What I mean by that is they don't really like what's going on with immigration, with migrants. They have a problem with the economy. They don't like paying higher rates on everything they buy. They have issues at the border. They have issues about their own pay. They're really having problems with transgender people. There's a lot of folks out there that don't like the system. They don't like what they see every day. And the Democrats did not meet that challenge. And what happened is just over 50% of the people voted for a strong man. They want a guy who is like Trump. They want someone strong, dominant, and a guy who is the authoritarian personality, and that's who we have.
Well, what is the psychology behind that? In other words, I've heard this before from friends and neighbors. Let's burn it all down.
Right.
Let's burn it all down. But never what happens after you burn it all down.
Well, that may be a good point, but they're not thinking about after. They're thinking about themselves now, in the here and now. They're not talking about the future or the past that much. It's like that Gestalt thing that we talked about many times.
Gestalt, yes.
Everything's related to the future and the past in the present. Mm-hmm. But it's the present that counts, and these people feel that they're on the outside of society looking in. They don't like what they see with migrants, immigrants, the economy. Why? Why am I paying so much more? Why am I not better than I was 4 years ago? Mm-hmm. What's going on? They're just agitated. They're frustrated. And many are angry. They're quite angry.
What do you think Harris did right and wrong in running against Donald Trump?
Well, I think what she did was she tried to reach out to everyone. She tried to be a president for everyone. And she tried to really go forward with a winning personality where she was comfortable with herself and she had a forward-looking appeal. Mm-hmm. However, she didn't come with any stuff. There was no real stuff on the table. I mean, like...
Oh, no, she talked about, giving $25,000 to new homeowners. She talked about a child care credit and so on and so forth. So she did have some things.
Okay, not enough. Good point. But nothing significant compared to Trump, who wants to, as you said, tear it down, break everything, build it back up, change the whole system. That's what they want. $25,000, they're not thinking about that so much. And Harris really didn't come up with a tax break. What about taxes? Nobody wants to pay more money when they make more money. They don't like this tax structure that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things are going on that people don't like, and it's reflected in the voting.
Well, he also won the popular vote, Donald Trump did, as well as the electoral vote.
He did.
And that is an accomplishment. In 2016, he did not do that. On the local end, the race for Senate, the Republicans now have control of the Senate. One of the races was right here in Florida, Rick Scott winning by a significant margin over Debbie Powell, the former Congresswoman. Why didn't they pour more money into this race? In my mind, they sort of left her hanging.
Well, they did leave her hanging, but the messaging here in Florida wasn't very good. Rick Scott has his base. So Democrats felt that Rick Scott was ahead of the curve.
He's the expert at winning close races. Yeah. You've said that before. This wasn't close.
It wasn't that close.
And as soon as he said he would not debate former Congresswoman Powell, yeah. I knew that he knew he had a big enough lead where he didn't have to.
Exactly. That's where he is. He felt that he was going to win by just moving along at his own pace, reaching out, working hard because he runs a tough campaign for himself.
Yes, and has unlimited funds.
Yeah,
too.
and he has unlimited funds. He took out tens of millions of dollars of his own money to support this campaign. So he had the money and he had the core.
All right, time now for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, again, I'd like to talk a little bit today about Democratic messaging. And it's so bad, and we've talked about it here before, but I want to repeat myself again here because the Democrats don't know how to approach people when it comes to dollars, taxes, money, and security, dollars. They just don't know how to talk about it. They want to tax the rich, but a lot of people don't like that when they hear it because they're thinking, well, what about me? Suppose I make more money. The Democrats are going to be there for me to tax me at a higher rate. Nobody likes this tax system. And the Democrats, they're out there and they're parading around. They're not saying anything about it. No one likes the situation that we're in financially when it comes to taxes. What are the Republicans and Trump saying? We're going to reduce your taxes. Trump is even saying we want to eliminate taxation in America. He wants to eliminate the IRS. Well, people are going to light up with that. The Democrats, they have no message, nothing of substance when it comes to taxes, money, and the economy. And that's, in my opinion, why they have such a problem.
Well, you've been a proponent of the flat tax for years.
Years.
You've talked about
Yes.
that with me in private,
Yes.
which we have discussed at length. But good point. They didn't really touch on taxes.
No.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Coming up, we look at how our fellow Floridians voted on some of the more controversial amendments and what happens next when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined by clinical and political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. Well, Amendment 3, which would have legalized recreational marijuana, and Amendment 4, which would increase the amount of time a woman in the state had to get an abortion, both did not pass. They got a majority of the popular vote, but short of the 60% needed to pass. And here we are again, and you discussed this last week. How do you get 57% on the amendment with regard to, let's say, abortion, and it doesn't pass, even though the majority wants it?
Frank, I'm glad we've been talking about this for weeks now because what we said previously on this one is coming true. I mean, when DeSantis won his election, he said that, again, we're repeating ourselves here, but for a purpose, he said that, look at the scoreboard. Look at what happened. Well, it was a landslide. And
When he ran for governor.
Correctly, right? A couple of years ago. All right. Well, now it's a landslide in the direction of a yes on these amendments, but the 40% are the winners, and the people with the 57 or so percent, they're the losers. They are the loser on this issue.
I saw something interesting while I was watching the election returns this week. Some states have a 55% amendment threshold. Why do we have 60? And for that matter, we can even talk about the Senate. Why is it 60? It should be 55, which is more doable and more fair.
I don't like that either. It should be 50. I mean, it should be 50 plus one vote. I mean, it's America. The majority should rule. I mean, it should be the people say what they want. And this is set up like it's really backwards. It's like the minority overtaking the majority and taking advantage of them. And I think that the psychology here is not going to sit well with the folks in Florida. This is going to be a problem. I mean, even though it's become a very red state, there's an issue here under the surface.
All right, let's talk about Amendment 3 and 4. Amendments 3 and 4. One is recreational marijuana, which was voted down based on the 60% threshold, and also extending the time you can get an abortion. Which one of these surprised you most?
I think the abortion issue, because what happened here, actually they both do, but the abortion issue because I thought there would be enough Republican women coming out to join independents and Democrats to make sure this got at least somewhat over the 60% mark. Mm-hmm. On the marijuana issue, I thought there would be enough people who would just generally say, okay, it's time for legalization and maybe get to 60. But on the abortion issue especially, I think that the governor and the folks at the State House worked very hard to come up with all kinds of reasonings to get that 40, 42%, get that minority up there so it would not pass. And I think that's really, that's going to play some issues going
You
forward.
see, I would respectfully disagree, and I'll tell you why. I think Amendment 3, which would have legalized recreational marijuana, is the surprise to me. There were a lot of baby boomers moving down to Florida who enjoyed during the 60s and 70s smoking pot. They either get it from different sources now or they get it from their doctor as far as medical marijuana. But you would think that they would say, okay, yes, this gives me an opportunity to smoke it legally. Why wouldn't I do it?
Well, again, the problem is if you're only going to have to get 40% to knock this down to defeat it, you know, that's pretty low threshold. And that's what happened here. And that's the problem.
Clearly, these two were very much on Governor Ron DeSantis' radar. He wanted both of these to go down to defeat. He's looking to 2028 and a run for the presidency, maybe taking over the mantle of Donald Trump at that time. How does this play into his plans?
I think he's got this backwards. Just my point of view as a psychologist. I don't think he should have been against the amendments. If they passed, he could have said going forward, well, you know me, I'm pro-life. But the states decided, and I'm for that. I'm for the people when they decide.
Or I'm the freedom state.
I'm the freedom state guy. Yes, exactly. But he didn't do that. That, I think, is going to be more of a burden to him than an asset going forward.
I was talking with somebody last night. I think the abortion issue in general is an albatross for Republicans that they really deep down didn't want. Because you've seen in states, with the exception of Florida, voters, Republican, Democrats, Independents voting to allow abortion to be part of the state constitution and with longer time to get an abortion. In Florida, it didn't pass. Technically, it did. The popular vote said it did. But I thought maybe this would have been a way for him to wipe it out, or Republicans generals just wipe it out as an issue going forward and say, hey, look, we did what we could, but.
Exactly. I think psychologically that would have been a better approach. But right now, if you look at it overall, the Republicans have done a good job of dancing around the abortion issue and at the same time winning. So, you know, who's to say?
While we're on this subject, Donald Trump, President-elect Donald Trump, the Senate will be in Republican hands. As of this taping, we don't know what the House will be. It could be very close. Does he take the next step and say, I want a nationwide abortion ban?
I think that he knows he's on a good pathway when he says, leave it up to the states. That worked for him during this election cycle. Why would he change that? Why would he make a mess out of something that's worked for him where he's gotten over 50% of the popular vote? No, I think he's probably going to stick with this states' rights stuff, and that would be smart for him.
And by saying that, he sort of gets it off his agenda.
He does.
I'm not involved in this anymore.
Right.
It's for the states to decide.
Exactly.
Let them do that and talk about something else.
He wins both ways, doesn't he? Yeah.
So you think that's the strategy?
I think that'll be it. Yes, that's the way to go. If I was advising him, I'm sure he's thinking that way. I'm the states' rights.
I'm done with that issue.
Yeah, and I'm for the states, and then he'll get more appeal that way.
You're interesting. Well, you're a psychologist. That's why. All right. Thank you, Doctor. The sunshine in Florida is terrific, as you know, but not every day is sunny. That's why every week we see who was in the sunshine this week and who got drenched in our popular segment, Sunshine or Showers, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. The weather can change just like that in Florida. You might be walking in the sunshine, as I was earlier this week, and before you know it, it's raining and you're caught out of position without an umbrella. It's time now to find out who was in the sunshine this week, who was in the showers, in the segment we call, appropriately enough, Sunshine or Showers. So, Doctor, who was in the sunshine this week?
Well, Frank, I have somebody that has to be in the sunshine, okay? A name that probably a lot of folks do not know. Susie Wiles. Susie was the campaign manager as the senior advisor to Donald J. Trump. She coordinated the whole campaign. She was the chief honcho here. She was in charge. Everyone seems to think she's a super organizer. She's a person who really knows how to get things done. And she should be in the sunshine, given the fact that Donald Trump is back in power and he won the popular vote as well as the Electoral College.
You know, yes, organized campaign, but he often won on, when he was speaking at least.
But she let him beat Trump. And she had some issues with what he said, but it worked.
So Susie Wiles.
She's in the sunshine.
She's in the sunshine.
And for you.
Oh,
Now,
for me.
Who do you have this week?
You know who I have in the sunshine? All the TV stations in Florida. TV news especially struggling. The margins are getting smaller, but they actually made $240 million in ad spending during this political cycle, this election cycle. So, they needed the money. They have the money. $240 million is a chunk of money.
Oh, yeah.
And it went to all the great TV stations, many of which we were on, this show is on. So we give them a hats off.
Very good.
All right, they're in the sunshine. All the TV stations, the news media, so on in Florida, in the sunshine this week for me. But as you know, and I mentioned it a moment ago, I was walking, singing a happy tune down the street the other day. Clap of thunder, rain, showers. Who's in the showers?
Well, I've got a lot of rain, a lot of showers for Democrats, Democratic Party across the country and here in Florida. They're not listening to us, Frank. They're not listening. They're not listening to the messaging thing. They're just not, especially when it comes to money. And I said taxes. They're not getting it. They're not understanding that people don't want to be taxed more when they make more money. And beyond that, when it comes to money in the economy. So I'm putting all of the Democrats in the party here in Florida and across the country in heavy showers as a result of this election.
This is the third time you've said that in this show.
And I've said it before. But guess what? It's the most important thing for Democrats because the map is shrinking. They're not listening. They're talking about going forward, but they have no stuff with them. They have nothing to present. It's not good.
And again, you mentioned it 3 times, so you're really adamant about this. You're really adamant about this.
So for you, who do you have?
You're asking me who I have in the showers this week? I have the Tampa Bay Rays home stadium, which is Tropicana Field. Right. During Hurricane Milton, it lost its top. It was ripped off. Right. And now apparently there is a kerfuffle, as it were, over who exactly is going to replace the top, who's going to pay for the top. It's actually put in jeopardy their plans for a new stadium, the city of Tampa and St. Pete, a new stadium for the Tampa Bay Rays. And it's a $6 billion undertaking with a lot of stores and so on around it. But they have to settle who fixes the top of the stadium, before the season begins, and most importantly, who pays for it.
So it's a big deal, and nobody's doing anything.
And well, you know what? I'm going to put an inanimate object in the showers. I'm going to put the stadium in the showers.
Okay.
I don't know why when they designed it, they didn't think that a hurricane could rip the roof off.
Yeah, that's pretty shallow thinking, I would think. It's a big Megillah. That's another psychological term.
A kerfuffle or a Megillah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I don't know. That might be the technical term. I'm not sure.
But you're right about it. It deserves showers.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, a commentary by yours truly titled, Let's Be Frank, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. The American electorate is in an unusual place. The old way of campaigning, which worked for more than 200 years, has been upended. Clearly, past and future President Donald Trump has plugged into something that the average and older voter who grew up with distinct lines between the parties when it comes to conduct and policy doesn't see. This past week's decisive victory by Donald Trump is in many ways as jarring as his 2016 victory, when he defeated the odds with blunt talk, an insult to an American war hero, and a crude on-camera video in which he bragged about groping women, all of which would have sunk any past presidential candidate. This time around, however, Trump not only won the Electoral College vote, but the popular vote as well, something he was unable to accomplish 8 years ago. I wonder how much of his win had to do with men of all ages and across every socioeconomic scale, uncomfortable taking that last step of electing a woman president. Kamala Harris never mentioned on the campaign trail what a giant step that would be, but we all knew it was. And I believe, in this reporter's humble opinion, it was one of the reasons she underperformed. Oddly, the untraditional candidate was able to defeat his opponent because of traditional values men still hold about what a president should look like. Trump has laid out an ambitious agenda that could change the contours of American government and society forever. Officials in his second administration will better understand how to navigate complex agencies and policy processes, making a faster and more ambitious agenda possible. The question is, how forceful will he be in pushing for and getting what he wants? He also comes into office with sweeping new powers invested in him by a Supreme Court that has found in many cases that the president is above the law. This is a scary combination for any president and the people he leads. As with any president-elect, we wish him well. It's up to him now to be the benevolent leader we expect every president to be, although as we have seen from the former and future president in things large and small, you never know. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, and the fine people working behind the scenes, thanks for joining us. As always, we'd like to know what you think. Visit us at powerandpolitics.tv or email us at info@powerandpolitics.tv. We'll see you again a week from now at this time and on this same station. Have a great week.